Okay, so let's just briefly go over the dilemmas and the sources of last week, just in order, as a springboard to continue this discussion. So it all starts the Mishnah in Aholos. In Aholos, Perek Zayin, Hamikasha Leiloi. Mechatchen esavlad evorim, yotzoroishoi, ein noigem boi. Shein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh. So it seems to be obvious, as long as we're dealing with a fetus, it's not a nefesh. And that's why, yes, we destroy the fetus to save his mother. But the moment his head comes out, it is a child. It is a human being. And there's no difference between a child that is 1 minute old and his mother that is 20 or 30 or 40 or who knows how old. Ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh. And the Rambam in the Persia Mishnah writes, I have nothing to say about this Mishnah because it's pashut. Pashut. That is very uncommon in the Rambam. The Rambam is like Rashi. He's a passion. He's mafarish everything. Comes to this Mishnah, he says, pashut. Zekulei pashut, ein tzorech biyu. And then the Rambam, the other Rambam, the end of first Perek Hilchos Tzeiach writes, a shattering chiddush. Why do we destroy the Uber to save his mother? Because he is a roidei. Oh. But the Gemara Sanhedrin that we had on our screen just a moment ago says he's not a roidei. So the Rambam says atzmoi minei ubei. The Rambam brings the din of roidei. Leficha chayru chachomim shehu uboro. Shimak sheleled mutar lach lecha ube b'meyeh ube b'sam ben biyad. מפני שהוא כרוידף אחריו, להרגו. ואם יש אצלו שאינו גמוי, שאין דרך הנפש נפש, זה טבע של העולם. זה טבע של העולם means, משום מאיה קורד פלי. Is he a roidef or is not? If he's not a roidef, why does the Rambam write the reason, shemachatran, is because he's a roidef. What type of a roidef is this? So all the Achronim mushen zich with the Rambam. It's just beyond us. So let me share with you my interpretation of the Rambam, to which I got a very warm and gewaltige Askoma from Rav Shach, and he told me it's Torah sense. Which brings us to a Gemara in the Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis and Bava Kama, if we could have it on our screen, because the entire Shiur is based on that Gemara. Bava Kama Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. So the Sugya of Roide Facha Chavera Lahordoi is in Sanhedrin the Fayim Beis. That's the source of the Sugya. But Bava Kama Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis is an interesting Gemara.
Okay, it's coming up in a second. Quite a Rav.
Okay, Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. So the Gemara tells a story about a ferry that ferries people from one side of the river to the other. Okay, here we are. Ahu Gavra, right in the middle.
The wide line, the first wide line, Pesach. Make it right.
First wide line. Ahu Gavra the Agdim v'asek chamra lemavra, kame de seliku inshei b'mavre. Rashi says he put his donkey on the ferry, and machnas chamoiro lisfena maver me'ever hanoah vayubo anoshim. So there were men on the ferry, on the boat. They didn't leave the boat yet, and he put his mule on the boat. So his donkey got berserked, and it started jumping around, or maybe just too heavy. So a person grabbed that donkey, threw him overboard, and the donkey drowned, and he saved the boat. So the owner of the donkey called the person that threw the donkey overboard to a din Torah, Patre. And Rabbi said, doesn't need to compensate him. Put him into Shlimen. What right does he have to destroy a donkey, throw it overboard, and make it drown? And let's have a look in Rashi. And therefore, if a person is a roidef, you have a right to kill him. Kal v'chomer, you have a right to destroy his money if that is needed to save people. Why is he considered a roidef? So from Rashi, it's mashma that when he put the donkey on the ferry, people were already there. And Rashi says, who is the roidef? Baal hachamor. But he definitely didn't have any bad intentions. And he didn't need to anticipate that his donkey is going to become wild. So why is he defined as a roidef? But nevertheless, your donkey endangered all the people. But why am I defined a roidef? I think last week we didn't discuss this at great length because we're not learning the sugya of roidef. But when the Gemara says Mishamaya Karat Felei, it means nature is nature. So the child endangering his mother's life is not a roidef. So if a donkey goes wild, why is that a roidef? Zet tivoi shel olam. So we say, but the owner of the donkey wasn't supposed to put the donkey on board. And why not? Why not? It's mashman the Gemara. It's legitimate. I mean, ferries ferry not only people, they ferry merchandise, they ferry animals. Why would he be considered a roidef? Today I'm going to burden you, my dear friends. I'm not sure all the Maramakoimes I want to quote are on our list, but I would very much appreciate if we could have Choshen Mishpot Shin Pei. Choshen Mishpot Simen Shin Pei, and I want to point out a fascinating Rambam. Choshen Mishpot.
We'll be there in a second. If the Rav gives a second, then the Rav can just proceed to explain it. It's going to come on momentarily.
So the Rambam writes, not that the owner of the chamor is a roidef, but the chamor is a roidef. The mule is the roidef, not the owner. The owner did nothing wrong. He put an animal on the ferry, and obviously that was the minhag. As I said before, a boat is made not only to take people, but to take merchandise. What's wrong with that? Siv Dalet, the very last line in Siman Shin Pei. Let's have a look at the Rambam. It's fascinating. Okay. Shulchan says, not that the person that put the stuff on the boat, שישלח להושיע. יש אומרים דווקא שטעוני יויסה מדי, דאבה המעשה כרוידף. אבל אם אין הטעוני יויסה מדי, חייבים לשלם, לפי מעשה. And then he brings the story with the mule. הכנס חמור בספינה, וקויפץ בספינה. Put a donkey and the donkey is jumping around. Koifetz b'sfina v'bikish l'tavoi. Bo echad v'hishlach ha'chamor anoah. Im derech lahachnes chamorim b'sfina, az ha'mashlicho chayiv lahashlim. V'im loi, az ha'chamor mikre roidef. V'kol ki yoytze bo. So both the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam say the roidef is not the person. The person did what everybody does. The chamor is a roidef. The masa is a roidef. How can an animal be a roidef? An animal never means bad, especially not a donkey jumping around in a boat. He's not intelligent enough to know that he's endangering anyone. So what's the concept of roidef in this case? So let me share with you a yesodistic svara, which I think is the essence. Shnei dinim beroidef. Two halachas. One halacha of roidef is we have no right to jeopardize the right of one person to save the right of another person. If person number one did no evil, did no bad, mehechet teisa, to jeopardize the rights of Reuven to save Shimon. There's a tshuva in Radbaz, which I quoted a few times in Shas Tshuvas Minchas Osher, Chelek Aleph and Chelek Beis. I think that Radbaz is Chelek Beis of Risadike, I'm not sure, but I quoted it many times in my sport. Goyim told a person, we want to cut off your hand, we want to amputate your limb. If not, we're going to kill your friend. Is he mechuyev to give away his hand to save another person? Crazy shaila. Only Jews needed to deal with these crazy shailas throughout the ages when we were tortured in such a senseless way. So that Adbaz says a person is not mechuyev to give away a hand to save another person. And then Advance writes about 5 or 6 reasons. So I am demanded to give away a limb. The other person will lose his life. Apple pecan that Advance says the Rocheo Dark and I am. I'm not required to give away a limb to save another person's life. So I don't want to discuss this. You know, this is a profound discussion regarding kidney donations, or which I very much support, I'm very much moved by. But I just bring that Advaz try to explain that we have no right to jeopardize one person's rights to save another, even though salvaging that other's thing is far greater and more important than what I am demanded to forego or forfeit. So if the Radbaz says, I don't need to give away a limb to save another person, why would we demand from a fetus to give away his life to save his mother? For the fetus, it is all he has. He has nothing more. And after all, a fetus is a potential human being. He's not an nefesh, but he is something. And we're Mechalas Shabbos to save a ubar. And that proves that ubar is something of value. And the Ran quotes, and the Ramban also quotes the Halochas Gedolos. How do we know we're Mechalas Shabbos to save a ubar? Chalel olav Shabbos achas kadeshi yish mishabosas arba. If a ubar, a fetus, has no value, we wouldn't have a heter to be Mechalas Shabbos to save. So from the perspective of the fetus, of the ubar would cry out to us, Rabbi Isai, this is all I have. This is my life. My life is not important as your lives. You big guys, you big people, but it's all I have, and I want to live. And I am a potential human being. I'm not a nefesh yet, but I am an efficient potential. So who gives you the right to destroy me to save yourself? And therefore I say, din roidef. Just like we throw that animal overboard to save the others. And if not for din roidef, we would say, no, you need to compensate him. But you can't compensate a fetus for his life. It's not money. And you can't pay a Uber because he's not going to be around to collect that money. And therefore, if not for the din roidef, we would have no right to destroy an Uber to save a life. Just like the Radbaz writes, we have no right to cut off a person's hand to save another. The person has a right to give away his hand if he wishes to save another, but we cannot impose it on him.
Everybody said we had an internet freeze here, apparently. Not sure what the issue is. It's not from outside. Apparently, it's a bandwidth issue in the Rav's home. So we're just going to have to wait to figure out what's going on. Give us a second. Everybody hang on here. We're trying to resolve this momentarily. Sorry.
Are we connected again?
We were back on, yeah. The Rav got cut off after the explanation of the Dimyon. Rav was talking about the Ubar after the explanation of Dimyon to Chamor about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so this is such a fundamental sugya, the story with the Chamor, and we see the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. Contrary to Rashi, they write that the animal is the roidef, not the person that put the animal on board. And that is the pshat of Toises Rid Bovakama Kuf Yud Zayin. So what we learn from here is, did you hear the Radbaz that I quoted?
We heard the Radbaz, yes.
Okay, so the Radbaz says, a person is not mechuyev to give away a limb to save another person. He's entitled to do so. So a person is entitled to give away a kidney to save another. But we can't grab a person just because he's a perfect match and put him to sleep and take out his kidney against his will. Even though for you it's just a kidney, you're saving another person's life. My kidney, I'm not mechuyev to give away. I could choose to do so, but I'm not mechuyev. So a fetus is no different than a kidney, no different than a limb. to the Ubar, maybe that Ubar would be crying out to us, this is all I have, my dear friends, I want to live. I might not be a nefesh, but I'm a nefesh in potential, and I want to live. So why are you taking away my life to save another? If not the din of Roidef, we would have no right to destroy a Uber to save his mother, even though the mother is a nefesh, and he is not a nefesh. He's not a nefesh, neither is a hand. He's not a nefesh, neither is a kidney. A kidney is not a nefesh. But we can't force a person to give away his kidney or his hand to save another. And we have no means to ask this Ubar, are you willing to die to save your mother? Maybe he would say no. Even throwing an animal into the river is not justified unless he has a din of eroidef. But regarding an animal, it's all about money. You could throw it into the river. The question would be, do we need to pay or not? But you can't pay a Ubar for taking away his life. However, in the level of roidef, which is required to take away the right of a person, is not the same level of roidef that is required to kill a person. Roidef is only an intentional redifa, only when he wants to kill another person. But the level of redifa to justify jeopardizing one's rights to save a life, the bar is much lower. Like we see in Bava Kama Kufutzayin. The animal means no bad. Even the owner of that animal that put him on the boat meant no bad. He was not supposed to think that his donkey is going to become crazy and jump around on the boat. But even if you're indirectly, after all, you mean no bad, you have no bad intentions, but you are the one endangering all the others, then you have a din of roidef, even though it's indirect. That is the chiddush of the Rambam. If this Uba would have no din of roidef, we have no right to take his life to save his mother. His life is all he's got. To him, it's as precious as a kidney, as precious as a limb, far more precious. I want to live. So the Uber is not a nefesh, but he's a potential nefesh. We're dealing with lois sirtzach. That is a totally different level. To be mater ibud nefesh, to be mater lois sirtzach, we need intentional redifa. So when the Gemara says, Mishamaya karat falei, there is no bad intent. If there's no bad intent, we cannot kill a nefesh. But as long as he's not a nefesh, any roidef loses his right to save a nefesh. And just like we throw that animal overboard to save everybody sitting on the ferry, the animal is a roidef. He has no bad intent. But when we're dealing with rights, then even that is considered a roidef. After all, the animal is endangering all the others. And that is my pshat in the Rambam. Yes, shnei dinim beroidef. And this is clear from the Gemara Bava Kama Kufutzayin and from Shin Pei and Choshe Mishpat. So a fetus is not a nefesh. We're not dealing with lois sirtzach. But to the fetus, it is all he has. That is his life and its potential life. And it's precious. It's precious enough to be machal Shabbos kedei la'atziloi. And therefore, if we would have no din of roidef, we would have no right to destroy the Ubram to save his mother. Just like we have no right to remove a kidney from one's body to save another. We have no right to chop off Reuben's hand to save Shimon. To Shimon, it's a life. To Reuben, it's just a hand. You have no right to take one's limb to save another. And the uber is not less than a hand, not less than a kidney. But this is where Roidev comes in. So when we're dealing with rights, not with nefesh keneged nefesh, not with loiserza, even an unintentional Roidev is still a Roidev. That's the Kiddush of the Rambam. Now let's come back to the cancer question. Koyach Shor, it's a lengthy tshuva, but what the first page is important. Do we want to put the Koyach Shor on the screen? Shalosh Tuvas Koyach Shor Siman Chav. The Koyach Shor is a contemporary of the Anointed Yehuda. I think we sent it over. We should be able to put, here we are, Siman Chav. Erev Shabbos Kodesh Seder Ki Ani Hashem Rafecho Tov Kuf Tes Vav. This tshuva was written 265 years ago. Oidi Hoylech Al Mishkanti V'dole Dome Nakshen Al Kevoisai Ki Nehiyesi V'nechlesi V'lule Hashem Be'ezrosi Kemat Shach Nadumi Nishmosi. You know, Gedolim once upon a time were very personal in their chivas, and it's so fascinating. Nishalti al oidos isho, a koishis shenishtan olei asid bereishis, sheze dakon shel meiboro islius mesolokois, ma gores demeim, ve'ishu aneskeres, tozoi v'domim, yomim, rabim, me'ena fugois, temoso b'sholeo ala oretz tishpachenu kamayim, hanigrim, ukamat rege hegiu ad shari moves, Ve'roifi yisol shofet shebishimoif and ein matzor la lo ishia bein rav bein ma'at. Only if we destroy the ubar, no meisilo. So in the first paragraph, at kanoi teboy lachim uvar adover al pi shvilei chok mesatev v'arafot shesibes cholyo nistar galei oridi koishim azori shel avrad. So the Koyach Shor, was Rabbi Yitzchak Shor, says, if this excessive bleeding is caused by the fetus, then it's a Mishnah and a Holos. And the Rambam explains, he's a Roidev. But if the bleeding is not caused by the pregnancy, it's just internal bleeding, then the Koyach Shor says, well, the Uber is not a Roidev. He's not the one endangering his mother. And therefore, we have no right to destroy the ubar to save his mother. Last week, I wondered, so would we prefer two people dying than one? Not always do we say Toiv Mashnayim and Wechad. And this brings us to the sugya of Sheva ben Bichri, which I think you discussed. In Masechet Trumis Perek Zayin, there's a Mishnah. We don't have Bavli on Trumis, but we have Yerushalmi. And in Yerushalmi, there's a lengthy discussion. When Goyim fall upon a group of people.
We'll put up the Yerushalmi if you don't mind. If Pesach, it's in the,
Great.
in the master, make it easier for everybody to see.
So the Yerushalmi deals with the question, when hoodlums, crooks, cannibals, whatever they are, in the middle of the forest, take into custody a group of Jews, and they say, give us one of you. We want to eat him up. We're hungry.
Page one, the bottom of page one. The Tosefta in the Trumas.
Here we are. Siyah shel bnei Yadam, she'amru lehem nochlim, tnu lanu echad mekem v'nahargenu, ve'im la v'arayanu horgim es kulam, yahagu kulam, v'al yimsu lehem nefesh v'Yisrael. אבל הם יחדו להם, כגון שיחדו לשבע בן ביכרי, יתנו להם, ואל יהרגו. So, the Tosefta says, and Yerushalmi, it's a lengthy discussion, if those cannibals say, give us one of you, we don't need more than one. We want to kill them and eat them up, and all the others can go free. If not, we'll kill you all. we don't choose mi yichya mi yomes. It is only HaKadosh Baruch Hu that decides mi yichya mi yomes. But if they want one of them, this is the guy we're looking for, then we turn our eyes to the heavens and say, Rabbeinu Shalom, what could we do? These are your kinderach. Now it's up to you. And we give them over. This is not halacha psuka. But it's not really the sugya we are dealing with. But what we do see in this sugya is, we are not the ones to decide who will live and who will die. And even if all of them will probably die, we cannot give out one of them. However, if it's not for us to decide who stays, who lives, and who doesn't live, to be or not to be, but as they decided whom they want, then we give them over. Is our case similar to the case that we just learned in Tosefta and in Yerushalmi? If we don't intervene, if we do nothing, both mother and baby both will die. If we destroy the fetus, we could save the mother. Is it the same? No. This is a classical example of we know who needs to die and who can live. If we destroy the fetus, we save the mother. So it's just like the case in which the Goyim said, give us Reuben, give us Shimon, and all the rest can go free. I also think there's a difference between nature and robbers and murderers. When the Goyim say, we're going to kill you all, we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, save us. Meifar machshavei sarumim. But when it's natural, it's more reasonable to say we need to save one out of the two. That is exactly what Rabbi Kiva says against Ben Ketura Chayechu Kodim Lachayechu. Doesn't make sense. Yishtu Yamusu Shnehem. If we could save one, why should two die? Is there a roidef? And I say, yes. In this level of redifa, when we're not over on loiserzach, we're not killing a nefesh, this is also a roidef. Because after all, the fetus is jeopardizing the mother's life. Not directly, indirectly, but the fact is, if we don't destroy the fetus, the mother will die. It's no difference than the donkey jumping around on the boat. And a ubar has a din of roidef. And the way I understand it, in this level of redifa, we don't need intention, neither do we need a direct redifa. After all, the fetus is the one standing in the mother's way to be saved. Because we can't stop the bleeding only if we destroy the fetus. That is also defined as a roidef. So Yesoidoi Shel Davar, Shnei Dinim Beroidef. And my Yesoid is based on the Gemara in Bava Kama Kuf Yud Zayin, on the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. But even Rashi, that says the Baal Hamor is the roidef still. He doesn't fit into the normal category of a roidef. He did nothing wrong. He had no bad intentions. What he did was fundamentally legitimate. And therefore, I think, yeah. So what I just shared with you is briefly discussed in Minchas Choshen Mesechet Pesachim Simon Chof Ches, but I expanded it and I explained it far better than what I wrote there. I don't recall, but I don't think I brought the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, the Taisus Rid. I just briefly mentioned the Gemara in Bava Kama. So this is why Halacha L'Maisa I paskin many times. If a woman has cancer and she's pregnant, and the doctors will not treat her as long as she's pregnant, I say there is no choice but terminate the pregnancy, hoping to save the mother. And many times, Noshim Tzidkoniers are not willing to do so. And I could just say what I think is right. But this is so painful, these decisions, because even if you do terminate the pregnancy, nobody could promise the mother at a force later. We know what cancer is. And sometimes she might have a baby and she will still be treated and she will be saved. Sometimes we'll terminate the pregnancy and she can't be saved. But still, we rely on medical information. And if the doctors say, if we don't terminate the pregnancy, it might be too late, I think we should terminate the pregnancy based on my understanding of the Rambam in Roidev. I also argued that Rashi and the Rambam in Pesha Mishnah had a different understanding. There's no need for the din of Roidev. And Sofet Nefoshes the Kula. So this is a profound shaila and a very painful one. But there's no choice in deciding. We need to give psak. We cannot just look the other way and try not to feel the torment of halachic shailas dealing with pikuach nefesh. So my psak is lo kedivrei hakoyach shor. I disagree with the koyach shor, even though we lived 250 years ago. But aniyas daiti ein halacha kemoisa. So we have a few minutes left, and I would like to analyze the basic sources. What is the Isser to destroy a ubar? What is this Isser? In our times, two Gedolim had very different opinions. Rav Moshe was extremely machmir. And Rav Moshe writes in his Shuvas, Lo Yisertzach, no less. Ein dinoi mosel based in, but it's a tzich. Rav Waldenberg, in his Shuvas, is very makel. Be'inyan, yeah. Lavar she'osa Rav b'shlo tzar hu ein. So Rav Moshe quotes the Tosfos in Sanhedrin, and he also quotes the Rambam. If not for the din roidev, we couldn't destroy an ubar. So what Rav Moshe takes out of the Rambam is it's lo yisertzach, and that's why we need a din roidev. However, according to my understanding, it's not lo yisertzach. And this is a very limited concept of redifa.
It's a different way to Rav when Moshe's chiluk with Rabbi Waldenberg, so the Rav can see that in the second page. And the
okay, so we'll get to the Marit shortly, but if we have Rav Moshe open here, look at the third column. Ve'yanti b'Marit she'keshtei tshulos, asoisus b'chelek aleph, tzadik zayin, oise keshelek hasakona, and tzadik tes, Abi Yisraelis machem esivit nefoshes, ein nidnud klal. So Rav Moshe says something strange. Ech lo hiske divrei Rambam. Lechen poshet she'ein lashgiach al tshuva zu klal. Kivan the tshuva mizayefesi is a Talmud Toya. Could we go over to the next page? So this is very strange. Because of bishmoi, tshuva mizayefes mezatoya v'mata. Couldn't we say in a tshuva in the Marit that is printed 500 years just because we don't like what he writes, that it's a tshuva mizuyefes? This is something unheard of. Tshuva's Marit is with us 500 years. Could we say in a tshuva's Arashba, or why would it be different than a Rambam or a Rashba or anything else? So anyway, Reb Yehuda was Mekel, Reb Moshe was Machmir. Whenever a question of this nature came to Reb Shlomo Zalman said, Gates of Reb Yehuda. He didn't want to take it upon himself, so he used to send to Rav Waldenberg. And there are many sources that Moshe says it's lo yisertzach. How could it be Lo Sitzach if the Mishnah says he's not a nefesh? And one of the most important sugyas is Erech and of Zion. In Erech and of Zion, if a woman is Chayiv Mises Beis and she's pregnant, we don't wait. We don't wait for her to have the baby. And the Gemara asks, Pshita, Gufahi. So we would have a Hava minute because of the monetary rights of the husband, the Mevladas. We should wait till she has the baby. If destroying a fetus would be Lo Sitzach, how could we destroy a fetus because of Imli Hadin? So many Achronim deal with this question. We don't have that much time. Better my safer about the Chavas Yoram. Some Gedolim say the Isra is like a Shchot Betzor Zera Lematola. A fetus would be like Zera. Oh, that would be a Gevaldige cooler. No more than I saw Zera Lematola. That's not likely. Let's have the Marit, because the Marit is the most important source. He's the earliest. The Marit is Ma'amudei HaHalacha. So we have two tshuvas. Both tshuvas are kulas. So the Merit says the Isra to destroy a fetus is Medin Chabola. And he quotes the Mishnah in Ohalas. Yotzer Reisha Inogawai. The kosher tamim shem the chaya kod malachayo. Im lo yo lo sekon sochos jes b'chayav vlad beismechush. He asks from Erechem. What about the sugya in Erechem? And then he brings it in. We're mechalel Shabbos. Al miyesh yisa b'davo. Let's scroll down. הרי דדובר זה לנפולים דנפושס לפיקוח פלוגתי וסופת נפושס לא כלך יויצון וכל שכן שלא לפגוע בהם ומנאי אלפינן, let's go back up to the top, ומנאי אלפינן לנפולים דגויים איסור איקר. So in this tshuva, it's ambiguous. On one hand, he writes, it's a din of chayvel. On the other hand, legabi pekuach nefesh legabi atzolas ubar, when mechala Shabbos to save an ubar. Tzadik Tes is the second tshuva in which he is makel more. Shalta mamuta le'sasik. Le'sasik im shetap rebitme. Ibn nefoshes ein kan. תפילו ביסוד נפולם לאו נפשו, ומומני דחי ברחמון, את מפלודס לבעל. על מנפולם אפילו נפש כלדו, לא מקרי. And he once again brings the Gemara in Erevin. So, he writes, לא ימבויה לי ישראל, even going that נרגע לאירן, הרכס בישראלס, even though we're not dealing with a sakana. So the Moshe says, there's a state between both tshuvas, which there obviously is, but both tshuvas is quite mekel. Tzadik Tes is more mekel than Tzadik Zayin. This is very common that there are status between tshuvas at Aswan. Anyway, my approach is, and I wrote this in my scorn. What's the Isser to destroy a fetus? The same Makor that were Machal Shabbos to save one. Chalel Olav Shabbos. Achas Kedei Sheyishma Shabbos Hazav. Now we finish off today's Shiur with the Ran in Masechet Yoma. Yoma Pei Gimel of the Masechta, but it's mamish the beginning of the Ran. in Masechet Yomei, if we get at it on the screen. The Ran quotes the Halachas Gedolos. Are we Mechal Shabbos to save a fetus, to save a over? Halachas Gedolos Paskins, yes. And it's in Shulchan Aruch, the Ran and the Rashba, the Ran and the Ramban and Torah Sodom bring. Here we have the Torah Sodom. Right,
No,
we don't need that.
Pesach controlled it. For Pesach, it's in the other file. It's in last week's
But we just had Torah Sodom on the screen. I saw
file.
it.
Of Weiss.
Here we are.
With Torah Sodom, okay.
Here we are. So the Torah Sodom quotes the Halachas Gedolos. Of Halachas Gedolos Nami, Isu Ibura, the Adinan, the Li Oilachra, if she's not going to eat it in Yom Kippur, the fetus will die. After the million Suffolk Ben Kiyom and Suffolk Nefel, Shapedum Lemeitan Lo, to feed her.
Yellow, the upper right, Pesach, the Torah Sodom. The beginning of the Torah Sodom. Rambam is reading this. Okay. The quotations on the left side.
Yes, I'm looking forward. No.
It's about halfway through the left side. Where the hand is, right where the hand is. Starts where the hand is.
Okay. No, but I don't see what I'm looking for.
It is right there underneath the hand. 2 lines underneath the hand.
Okay, yeah. Here we are. Omru Torah, Chalol Shabbos Achas, Shemi Yishma Shabbos Azarba, Afel Atzoros Iba, Fochas Marbom Yom, She'ein Lo Chias Klal, Mechalel and Olav Kedas, Bal Halachas. Now I say, that very same source is the source that assers destroying a fetus. It is totally impossible that you are allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to save a Uba, and then 5 minutes later you're allowed to destroy him, you're allowed to kill him. So why were you Mechal Shabbos? The very same source that permits Chil Shabbos to save a fetus is the source that it's a Issa government to destroy a fetus. He's not a nefesh, but he's a potential nefesh. And the Halachas Gedolos says, a potential nefesh is precious. Precious enough to be Mechal Shabbos. Precious enough to aser, to prohibit destroying a fetus. Vanias Daiti, that is the most reasonable interpretation. What is the issa of destroying the uba? So it's more chomor than Haitzor Zera Levatola, but it is not Loi Tirtzach, because after all, he's not a nefesh. Mechat chenes ablad eiborim la'atzil et ha'ein. So, I think I hope the Shiur was interesting and fascinating, and we dealt with really shaylas chamuris.